Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar will be about animating my sketches with Moho presented by Rhys Thomas. This webinar will be approximately 1 hour long. We'll have a Q&A session during the last 15 minutes. Please use the question panel for comments. Send your questions or doubts to Rhys. The chat is not working for that. We only use it for sharing information. So if you need anything or want to comment, send your comments, use the question panel. This webinar is being recorded, so we'll be sharing the recording on our YouTube channel. So please don't forget to subscribe to receive a notification once the video is available. The panelists for this webinar are Mario Quiñones, myself, Victor Paredes, and Rhys Thomas. Also, if you tag us with #webinar, #MohoAnimation, and at @RSKT_art at Moho and Moho Animation will be sharing your stories. Rhys Thomas is a freelance artist from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, with a keen interest in digital illustration, animation, and music production. So with that, I will leave you with Rhys and his webinar, Animating My Sketches with Moho. Thank you all so much.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Rhys Thomas, and as Mario said, I'm from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. Today, we're basically going to be having a look at how I went about rigging a praying mantis, which we can see here. I'm sure you've seen him floating around. Just before we dive into all of that, a quick little bit about myself. Basically, I operate under Riskit as my artist name online. I do have a website where I do a lot of different art and music tutorials, and those can also be found on my art channel, which can be seen here on the left, and my music channel, which is seen on the right. Also, just before we get going, I just wanted to point out that I actually already have a video about this guy on my YouTube channel. So if there's something that I don't get to cover today, or maybe I've left something out, definitely check this video out because there might be a little piece of information in there that can be useful to all of you. I also just want to point out that I was heavily inspired by this video by Victor, where he went into great detail about how he drew and rigged up this character. I thought it was really fantastic and super inspiring. So I highly recommend that people go and check this video out as well, just because there's a lot of really great information in there already. All right, so let's have a look at some of the drawing tools. Actually, just before we do, let's have a quick look at the final rig, just to sort of give you a bit of an idea of what we've got to work with here. So this is the praying mantis rig. There's not really too much going on, like fancy rigging. If we can move him up and down, we've got a couple of smart bones just to sort of help change the sort of way his body is moving and rotating. We can get him into all sorts of cool and creative poses, which is really great. And then we've got these facial controls up here, things like blinking the eyes, opening and closing the mouth. You can give him different sort of expressions. And oh yeah, some of these aren't going to work because I'm not on frame one. But yeah, we can also rotate the head around and change where he's looking and where he's sort of focusing, which is really, really great. And for those who haven't seen the animation, I probably won't play the full thing because it goes for a little while and it might be a little bit choppy on your end, but yeah, basically this is sort of what that rig will allow you to accomplish. I really liked this because the drawing itself is actually super rough and basic, and the rig is fairly basic as well. It doesn't take too long to put together, but as you can see, it gives you a lot of creative control over getting him into different poses and doing all sorts of really cool stuff. Great. So what I've done is I've prepared a working file. over here on the left is an old sketch I did years and years ago and didn't really think much of. And basically, we're going to start to recreate this with some of Moho's drawing tools. So first up, we need to go to Window and open up the Styles panel so that we can see some of our drawing tools here. And I've got this vector layer all set to go. And let's have a quick look at styles. So in this top panel here, we have styles, and you can see that underneath that, I've got mantis line and mantis texture. So if I click on this, we can see that it's got a predefined brush and a predefined stroke color. If I go to mantis texture, it's got a predefined brush as well. So we'll go back to styles and select none, and let's quickly look at how we can set something like this up. So we basically want to hit styles and then new, and I'll just call this demo line. And then underneath here, we can choose sort of what we want this to be defined as. So I'll click this, we'll open up a brush. I'm going to select this one. And we can make sure that we're always using the same stroke color if we want as well. So I'm just going to pick a color from this illustration. Maybe something where there isn't already color on it. It's pretty, oh there, that's a good nice dark spot. Great. And by checking these, we can say that yes, we want this to be always this color, and yes, we always want it to be this width. And we can quickly go back to none, and then underneath here, we can pick demo line. So now we can draw this line around, but you'll see that we can't actually change the stroke width or the line width with this panel because we've already determined that in the style. So I'll just quickly delete some of those. So yeah, if we want to edit that, we can just go back. I'll just make sure that we're off of that. We'll go back to demo line. So if we wanted to be able to change that line width whenever we want, we could just uncheck this. So now we'll select none, go back to style, hit demo line, and yeah, now we can make it really big or really small. It's entirely up to you. Seeing as though this was drawn with a pen and marker, the pen stroke is mostly the same width all the time. So I'll just one more time come back in here and we'll say that yeah, we probably want it to be, I don't know, maybe 2, something like that. Looks good. And then come back to none, and let's quickly create a new one for the color. So I don't need the stroke color to always be the same, and I don't need the width to always be the same, but I do always want it to have, let's say, this brush. And we'll call this demo color. Come back, hit none. And now, yeah, we can select demo color at any time. We can change the width, and there we go. We're pretty much off to the races. So just having these things set up is particularly useful because if we quickly add, we will start drawing in just a second. If we come back to this demo line, for example, and we'll just quickly draw a line and I hit play, it's just a static line and nothing interesting is happening. But if we open up our brush settings, we can activate this setting called line boil. And basically what it's going to do, so just hit OK, is jitter the line slightly for us. And this is what's going to help give it that hand-drawn effect while it's animating. We can change the jitter angle and the spacing and everything and sort of space it out. I didn't mess with that too much, but what I did mess with is randomizing the interval and just making it happen on every second frame, because otherwise it just looked a little much. So now when we zoom in, we've got this cool sort of pulsating look, and it looks like every time the frame is changing, a new drawing's coming in. And if we have a look at the final rig here and just hit play, and we can kind of see what that effect gives us. So nothing static. And yeah, I feel like it just really helps, particularly with this style of illustration. So coming back to here, I'm just going to quickly delete that line. And we'll come down to demo color, and we'll also activate line boil for that and set it to every second frame. Great. So finally, we can start drawing. So I'll select demo line here, and we've already got our color predefined. And basically now all we need to do is start tracing. So let's start with maybe the abdomen, just because it's sort of nice and big and out of the way. And I'm actually just using the freehand drawing tool up here. I'm being super rough with it as well. Not really doing that much sort of care. And I'm just drawing this with a mouse as well. So we'll just quickly get some of this initial shape in there. Because it's that sort of pen and marker style, we've got the luxury of just being able to really rough this in as much as we want. So in a bunch of lines. I'm probably not going to be very careful with this or as careful as I was with the original drawing. Great, so we've got that, and we'll call this abdomen. And what I like to do is put my color on a separate layer, and that's purely so that when I'm coming in and editing things later, it's just a little bit easier to grab everything. So we'll say abdomen color, and whoops, we'll just rename this one to line. We'll whack this one on top, and you can see that once I click off of this vector layer, our original layer becomes really pixelated. So if that's happening to you, just come down to display and uncheck GPU caching. Great, so we'll just come in, and now we can just switch here where it says style one. We'll switch this to demo color, and we'll pick a color with the color picker over here. And I'm actually just using strokes for this as well. I'm not using fills or anything like that. We'll pick this base color down here and just sort of, whoops, I'm on the wrong layer. We can change the stroke size a little bit, just sort of rough it in slightly, a bit smaller. Great. We'll pick another one, just a lighter color, make it a bit smaller. And that's just for that weird line down the middle. Yep. And finally, go this guy. Cool. So that's, the general process. The abdomen is done. And we can see that when we hit play, some of the line jittering is sort of crazy and happening outside of the line. So there's a couple of things that you might want to try doing if you encounter this. So for example, if we come up here, we've got this magnet tool. The magnet tool is like saving grace for this thing because we are using messy strokes. Basically, you get this circle, and if we were to just click in here, we can pull and push all of these points around, which is pretty great. But if we just sort of come in from the edge, you'll see that it's got a lot less influence. So I would just kind of try and push everything in a little bit as like one thing. It doesn't matter if it goes outside the line too much, but something else you might want to keep in mind, and I'll just draw this bit off to the side as an example. We've got this line here, and yep, we can pull and push things around. If you come down here, I think it is, yep, W on your keyboard, we've got the line width tool. So you can actually grab some of these and make them thicker and thinner in different parts. So if you are a little bit more careful with the line work than I'm being down here, you can sort of come in and have a lot more creative control over, like, exactly what lines are doing what in certain areas. So once I've drawn a body part, I actually group it. I'll say abdomen, and that's that part done. And we'll just, how am I going for time? 2:16. I'll just draw maybe a couple of other sections just to sort of drive that home. So we'll click demo line, and maybe we'll do the arm for, yeah, maybe we'll go the body. Actually, no, we'll go the arm just because it's on top. We'll use the freehand drawing tool on demo line. So yeah, we can just come in, smash it out. Obviously, like, your level of care is going to depend on just what sort of artwork you are working with. But I thought this was really cool to be able to sort of come in and just do things really rough and loosely and have it looking all, have it looking really cool. So we've got the arm there. We'll go color, whack that underneath. Line. And we'll skip ahead after we've done this bit because I think it'd be a little redundant to sit here and redraw the entire thing. But yeah, I hope that this is like a decent example of just how loose you can be with this entire process. When I was doing this, I noticed like that there's like 3 different shades of orange in here from where different parts of the color are bled. So you can just sort of paste it in wherever you want. And just to get that sort of markery look. So yeah, I think that that's a decent enough example. Now, I just also want to quickly drive home one of the main reasons that we're using styles here is, yep, if I hit play, you can see that we've got a bunch of drawings and the line width, the line boil is happening. But now I can come in anytime and let's say I didn't want line boil on my stroke. I just wanted it happening on the color. Well, I can just toggle that off and it's going to affect everything. So I don't have to go in for each individual layer and like select all of the line work and turn it off. Now I've got this global control that I can use for that. And yeah, it just makes the entire process a lot more forgiving if you're going to come back in and start changing things on the fly. Same goes for the stroke color. So, you know, we could change this to orange or anything else that we need if we're not finding our color works very well. So moving ahead, that brings us to the final artwork here. I'll just do that GPU caching. And let's quickly talk about rigging. We'll start jumping into the rigging section. A couple of things to note. You'll see that I've pretty much shown this as a one-to-one off of the original illustration. And that's great and all, except for when it came time to rig his legs. So his legs are obviously just sort of thrown in there. But if we look at the final rig, you'll see that his legs are actually quite different. And that is because basically like the fact that these are all different leg lengths, this bit's got like a weird, it's basically just bad proportion and it almost looks like foreshortening, but it's not. It's just a really rough drawing. So I actually came in and redrew the legs and made them a lot more uniform, which in turn made it a lot easier to rig and animate. So just keep that in mind when you're drawing something from a reference that you might need to change things just to sort of make things easier. But you know, that's part of the beauty of Moho is that I fully rigged the character and then just came in and redrew the legs and re-rigged the legs, and yeah, you wouldn't even notice. So let's kick off the rigging. I'm going to select all of these layers and we don't need the styles panel open anymore. So yeah, we can see that we've got like everything split off into its own little layer. we'll select everything here and right click and go group with selection. And now we can hide our reference layers. We'll call this guy Mantis, and then we want to right click that group and convert it to a bone layer. So now you'll see that the toolbar up the top here has changed and we've got some bone tools available to us. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that all of your rigging needs to happen on frame 0. So if you change to frame 1, you'll see some of the tools in the toolbar change, and that's basically because, yeah, everything that you need to do to make this guy is going to happen on frame 0. Just quickly looking at my notes here to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yep, okay, great. So basically we need a root bone first, and this is basically just to give us like a general control over everything and parent everything else to it. So I'm just gonna, with the new bone tool, I'll draw a new bone pointing down. And then from there, we want a couple of bones for the body. So we can just sort of slap this on here, one there, one there. We'll have a bone coming up for the neck and then one coming down for the head. And then if we were to draw, let's say we'll work on the arm here next. If we were to draw in the arm here and go there, you will notice that if we click this button up here, which is the parenting button, we've got all of these arrows. So we can see like this bone that we did for the torso, there's an arrow pointing to the root bone. So it means that it is parented to that, the next one's parented to that, so on and so forth. But because we started drawing this arm after we clicked off of doing the head, it thinks the arm bone is parented to the head. So we just need to make sure that this arm bone is selected, and then we'll hit the parent bone and just parent that back to the upper torso. And that just means that, yeah, it's going to look janky right now, but it means that the arm will follow the upper torso. Great. Moving down for the hand, so we'll click on this bone, add bone tool on there, and then I just did 2 little dangly bones, which we'll come back to a bit later. Now I'll select that torso bone again. Let's do the other arm. And you can just see that I'm being actually pretty loose with the way that these are thrown in as well. Like this is still just a straight bone, but you can see like it doesn't really line up with the drawing. That's totally fine. It's kind of just in there to make sure that the controls are going to be enough to work with the illustration. Coming back to the abdomen, I think the abdomen I just had connected to the root bone. I might just double check that because I don't exactly remember. Yeah, great. So we will go 1, 2, 3, and double check. Yeah, yep, great. And I will just rig up these legs just because these are the way that they're illustrated in this version. Actually, just before we do, I almost forgot the antenna. So we'll just go 1, 2, 3. And we'll notice if we get time later, we don't actually have to animate these by hand. It's all done automatically for us by the program. Great. So yeah, let's quickly look at the legs because I feel like this bit is pretty interesting. So I've got the root bone connected. We will draw out 1, 2, 3, and we'll just quickly do that for all of them. And again, yeah, these legs are pretty janky to be rigging, but it's still the exact same principle. Might have stuffed up the parenting there, but doesn't matter. 2, 3. That should be to that. Excuse me while I panda around and just make sure that I haven't stuffed everything up. Great. Just before we do the foot controls and everything, let's quickly talk about like bone strength. So right now, if I were to grab the manipulate bone tool and press the you can see all this blue stuff everywhere, and this is basically the bone strength. So if I start moving things around, it looks pretty weird and just sort of, warps all over the place. And a lot of that right now is down to how these layers are hooked up and the amount of bone strength. So what I like to do is just select everything with Control A, and then with the bone strength tool or S on your keyboard, I'm just going to drag all of this way down because nothing really needs to be that strong. And you can see, yeah, if we go to my final rig and just select bone strength, aside from the abdomen, I think, down here, and the arms, don't know why that one's so big, but yeah, everything's pretty small. There's not really like a lot going on. And it doesn't matter too much either because of the way that we're gonna sort of rig this up in a minute. So yeah, let's quickly look at how we sort of connect things around. And this bit is a little bit annoying and time consuming just because our texture and our line works are on separate layers. So right now, let's look at the abdomen. If we were to move this around, yeah, we can see that it's a little weird. So what we want to do is come in and select the line work. And what we're going to do then is down here, we've got these new bone select tools that are sort of underneath our drawing tools. So I'm going to select these three, and then up the top, hit link bones. And you can see that now the bones have become a little bit thicker. And that just means like, if we click off of that, they're thinner. That means that when this layer is selected, we can see that it is linked to these bones. And we're going to do the same for the texture. We'll come back up to our mantis. And now you can see that it actually deforms a little bit differently, quite a lot better because it is now solely linked to those bone layers. And essentially, that is what you want to do for everything. So if we come to the body, go to the body layer, so we'll select 1, 2, link bone, body texture, and so on and so forth. The collar as well. I forgot almost about the collar. So go link bones. And yeah, I know that this is annoying for me to be doing right now, but it is necessary for the rest of the tutorial. So I'll quickly smash through it and we'll fix things up as we go if I forget anything. Oh boy, yeah, see there's a lot of different parts to different arms and whatnot. We'll come in. Let's quickly link those up. That one will be to there. And hopefully just doing these front ones will be enough for the rest of the demo. I don't want everybody to be watching me rig this for the rest of the night. Antenna collar. Yeah, we'll see how we go for now, but that is basically the general gist, is linking things to layers. So you can see that now because I've linked this torso bone to the body, when we move our tail, it doesn't deform him anymore like it was originally. So that's essentially what you've got to do. Just go in, select every layer that should be hooked up to every bone. Like, yeah, we can see that the head is a little munted. So of course you want to come into the head and say, link the head to the head bone, link the head texture to the head bone, and same with the eyes and everything else. Just trying to think of a way around this. I think unfortunately I'm actually just going to have to quickly smash this out just to make sure that everything is going to work as we continue rigging the face and hopefully not run out of time. Let's see, eye, we did the eye, owl, mouth, head. I think antenna. These can all be linked to it. Oh, cool, you can do multiple layers at once. There you go. definitely speeds up the process. And we've done L, now the neck, the that one. Yep, we've done that. Collar back, to that one. And then I think we've just got the back arm to do. Yep, sorry about this part. Definitely going to be the most boring part of the tutorial. Yeah, I'm sure I probably stuffed something up along those sections. But yes, now we will just quickly do the legs. So this is this guy. These ones. Totally did not know that you could do 2 layers at once. I swear I tried that. So yeah, obviously everybody's probably figuring out by now that I'm actually still a bit of a noob at Moho. I think this is my 4th ever project I've done in it. So some things kind of go over my head, but yeah, okay, I think that we're pretty much good to go. So yeah, we can see that at the moment as we move our root bone around, our character moves all over the place. But what we want to do is have it so that when we move the character, and here's the finished rig here, we want to be able to move him up and down and still have his feet sort of nice and planted on the ground. So the way that we want to set this up, and we might do that we'll do that to this front leg here. So we need our bone layer selected, and we're going to select this sort of bottom leg bone, the one before the foot. We will come in and draw a bone sticking out to the side. And let's just actually quickly do all of these at once. It won't work probably just because of that leg issue I was talking about earlier. You'll probably see that becomes a bit skew with. But great, we've got all of these bones now. So we can come in and select all of them. We want to make sure that the bone strength is set to 0 for these. And I'm going to hit P on my keyboard and just unparent them and just drag out anywhere so that they're not parented to anything. Then next, we want to select this bone, this bottom shin bone, go into the parent option, and while holding control, we'll click this new control bone that we've created. And we can see that now we've got this tiny little circular symbol inside of it. And that means that, yay, now we've got this cool control bone. I don't know what's going on over there. I've probably not done one of these properly, but either way. Now, if that is a bit confusing, there is another way to do this, and I just want to point that out. At the moment, I haven't named any of these bones, and it is really important to name your bones. I definitely did on this rig, so we can see like this bone is leg left A, because we've got A and B, so this is left leg B, left leg A, and then left leg A, B, C, and then we've got B. Well, this one's not named, but these should have been called foot controls and whatnot. And the main reason I'm saying to do this now is because when you come in and start doing smart actions and things later, if you change the name of your bones after doing smart actions and whatnot, things can tend to break. So I would consider naming them. And anyway, going back to this, naming them also comes in handy because if you don't want to do this whole control click action, let's do it to this one, for example. So we've got B32, the control bone is B40. So we basically want to come in here, go to bone constraints, and say target is, what do we say, B40, I think. And now we can see we've got that same little symbol has popped up. So this is the same process as doing the control click that we did before. But yeah, now we've got this going on. So I'll just quickly do that to these other ones. Go this one, P, control click, and then this one, P, control click. I'm pretty sure this like stuffed up in some way, but yeah. what is that one? Should be left leg B. So not you. Pink bones. Pink bones. I don't know. I've stuffed something up, but yeah, I think that you get the overall point. Now we've got these legs that are sort of nice and planted on the floor. Something else to keep in mind about this too is like if we were to move this guy up and down, we can see that, or side to side, we can see that this foot is bending with it. Now I'm a bit of an idiot because when I made this final rig over here, you can see that is also happening here. Sorry, no, I fixed it in this one. But in the animation rig, it is happening. So basically, every time I moved his foot, I was getting really annoyed that the foot rotated every time I moved his body, and I would go in and individually keyframe everything back into its original position. Because I did notice that while rigging, and we're going to do this now, there is an independent angle option. So with this foot selected, I can come up to bone constraints and say independent angle. And now when I move this, it's great. It should stay put. It's just because of our bone strength. But yeah, we can see that this bone, ignoring the illustration, the bone itself isn't moving, which is great. But I found I was like, oh no, because if you come in here and click, you can't actually manipulate this bone anymore. Well, the thing is you can, you just need to be on frame 1+ to be able to do it. So now we can see that that is working fine. And I would not have had to painfully keyframe everything. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Having things set to independent angle makes your life a lot easier. All right, so let's quickly talk about face controls because how are we going for time? 2:38. All right, we're gonna try and smash out the face controls because I think there's a lot of really cool, interesting stuff going on. So just to give you oh, sorry, I almost forgot smart bones. We'll do smart bones first. So let's say that we've got this, um, this arm is bending. It's actually bending pretty nicely. Let's still fix it up. So if we can see that as we bend this arm down all the way, yeah, it starts to give like an S shape, and we don't want that. So we want to set up some smart actions. I'm going to press Control K on my keyboard, or otherwise you can bring up the Actions panel through Window. And now we've got this cool panel here. And with this bone selected, and this is what I mean, like you probably want to name, just keep in mind, name your bones. At the moment, it's just B7. So if I make this smart action, you'll see that it's going to call this action B7. And then if I were to go in and change this bone name to arm bone, the B7 action is going to break until you rename it. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, so I've hit new action, and now we can see our timeline is blue, and we're actually in a separate timeline to the main timeline now. So we'll scroll forward to frame 48. I just like to do things on frame 48. I'm going to bend this down all the way. Great. Now what we want to do is find that illustration, which is the left arm, and up here. And all I'm going to do is just use the magnet tool. Nothing really that fancy. It's actually all very rough, and we can resize things by holding Alt and just shifting it around. One thing I'm not sure I mentioned earlier as well is if you, well, actually we'll save that for when we do the texture in a second. This actually makes sense. Cool. I'm not sure I want that moving out there. So yeah, I'm doing a very rough job, but the general idea is that yeah, you know, now you can come in and you can manipulate the shape to sort of deform and behave in the way that you want it to. So yeah, we can come in here on the texture layer, and just come to frame 48, and then, so yeah, at the moment, I've got just these bones selected. There is a checkbox up here. That's the selected points only. So if I click that and sort of make this bigger, you see that we're only selecting those points. This is going to come in super handy when you need like a lot more fine detail. So we can just come in here and be like, well, I only just want to move like these two that are sticking out to the side, come up, select the points only, and just make sure that's happening. The other really useful thing is if we were to, we've got those points selected, if we press tab on our keyboard, it's going to select every other point attached to that stroke. And because this is such a messy way of illustrating, it's just something that you might find yourself needing every now and then. So we'll just sort of clean that up a bit, and there we go. It's still pretty rough, but you get the idea. Now we've made it so that we double click to go back to our main line, and every time we rotate this arm, it now deforms a lot better. Now, obviously, we don't want his arm bending backwards like this either. So I like to set up angle constraints and go to the Mantis rig, select that bone, and if we go up to the bone constraints menu, we can check angle constraints. So now you see these two lines sticking out the side. So we can just say, well, I never want it to bend past maybe that point, and just maybe bend to there. And so now we can never bend his arm past there and never bend it past there. So it might seem a little bit limiting, but actually I found that setting up these limitations early on made it a lot easier for the animation process later. All right, cool. I think you get the idea of smart actions there. The other cool thing is that you can set up smart bones as well. Just trying to think of a good example. Yeah, okay. So we'll quickly draw a bone out to the side, and this is going to be for some body rotation. So we'll do that, and we want to make sure that the strength is set to 0. And I'm actually just going to unparent it. Oops, wrong button. We'll unparent it for now. Great. And I'm going to set up some angle constraints. I actually, for these smart bones, I like to make these 45-degree angle constraints. Great. So for part 1, we'll click new action, and we will rotate this bone all the way to the left. And what we're going to do is do a slight body rotation. So there's a couple of different things that we can do here. For example, I'm just going to hide both the arm layers, and we'll bring out the body. And I'm going to do a super rough job of this, but we will select some of these lines here and hit tab. And then I'm just going to shift these over a little bit and like squish them. Again, yeah, super rough job, but this is just to sort of give the impression that his body is like moving left. We'll do the same with the buttons. So skew it a bit. Same with all of these. And we'll just sort of slightly wriggle a couple of other things just to make it look like there's some sort of movement going on. So, yep, and then we'll just very roughly just sort of shift some of this shadow and stuff over. Great, so it kind of gives the impression that his body is turning, especially you want to watch out for like the little lines and stuff down the bottom because that really sells it. And then what we can also do is move entire layers. So if we just show our arm layer again, we can just animate the layer. Oops. That actually, sorry, we don't even need to just animate the layer. If we go up to bone, pretty sure we can animate the bone. So we'll just shift it that way a little bit and do the same for our other one. And there we go. So we can see that, yeah, every time we shift this bone that way, it's going to twist him in that direction. We'll go back to our main line, and then with that bone selected, we can start a new action, and then you would rotate it to the other side and repeat the process. So that's happening the other way. I think in this illustration, sorry, in this final rig, I'm pretty sure that for that body turn, I just moved the layers. I don't think I moved the bones. And I'm not really sure what best practice is there. I'd have to experiment. I think moving the bones is probably the way to go, but maybe Mario can answer that a little bit later on. Either way, so yeah, we've got this sort of body rotation. Oh no, it looks like I did move the bones. There you go. So yeah, moving it left and right will help twist. I did the exact same thing for his abdomen as well. Just sort of helps him face forward and face sideways, which is really cool. All right, face controls. Let's quickly look at what is set up in the final rig. Go to frame. I don't know. Yeah, sorry, we'll go to frame 1 for this. So the eyes, we've got this pointing up, and these should actually be straight like this. I'm not really sure what's going on there. But yes, this is his eyes. We've got this control in the middle that blinks them. Oh yeah, that's why. That's why, Rhys. Yeah, sorry. I was experimenting. This is kind of the first time I'd ever done a face rig in Moho when I did this. So yes, if we rotate this way, his eyes blink. And you can see that all of these other controls move as well. And that is because they're individual controls for the eyes. So we can get really cool sort of like weird expressions and whatnot happening just by moving them. But at any time, we can just come in and reset these. And if we just want to do basic blinking stuff, we can just like blink and whatnot. So yeah, that's really it for the eyes. We've also got like emotion, so like worried looks or angry looks if he wants to look really mad. And then we've got his mouth opening and closing. Finally, for the eyes, we've got a look up and down control. And to the other side, we've got a look left and right control. But you'll notice like, especially once we start rotating his head, like sometimes, let's say I want him looking over here, but I don't like the fact that his pupil has disappeared. So in the middle, we've got this gaze control, which basically just moves the eyes closer together and further apart. So it can be a little bit finicky, and I've tried this with another rig, making like a circular thing for his eyes since, and I think it works a little bit better. But yeah, this just sort of gives you a lot more control over like exactly how the eyes are looking at any given time. And then finally, we've got this head rotation control up here, which we'll look at in just a second. So obviously, as I'm demoing this, rigging these up for the actual artwork and getting it all working in real time is going to take a while. So what we'll just mainly focus on are the controls themselves. So for the blink control, we've got a bone in the middle, and then I've got bones sticking out to the side. And sorry, I should say that there is a grid function as well. So maybe we'll use that just to make this all a little bit neater. So one there, one there. Great. We'll select all of these, hit the bone strength down to 0. And oh yeah, we'll make sure these aren't parented to anything. And basically what we're looking at here is this will be the left eyelid up and down, this will be the right eyelid up and down, which we saw over here, just to sort of give you an understanding of what those are. So when we come back to this, we basically want to make a new action for this guy. And on frame 1, we're going to have it all the way to the left. Whoops, just before we get too carried away with that, almost forgot, we want to set up angle constraints for all of these. So we'll select all of them, angle constraints, -45, +45, great. Yeah, and now we can select this guy. What was that, B42? Yeah, cool, new action. And on frame 1, we'll have it all the way to the left, and then on frame 48, we'll have it all the way to the right. And going back to frame 1, we will just make all these bones shift this way. So this will be his eyes closing. And then on frame 48, this will be his eyes opening. and we'll come back to the main line. And so now we can see that, yeah, eyes closed, eyes open. And then what you would do from there is go into these individually. So we've got this top lid, we'd select a new action, and we would say on, on the bottom to top, and we would select the eye. I'm just trying to find the right eye. Yeah, we would find the eyelid, and we would say, at this point, close. I'm not going to do it because this is going to take absolutely forever. That's just so that we can see some sort of movement happening. Yeah, so that would be like opening and closing and that sort of thing. So yeah, you would do that for each one, and then every time we come back, sorry, I don't think I'm not on the, there we go. Yeah, so we can see that those movements are now happening because we've attached that smart action to this bone. So yeah, you would just go through and do that for all of those. Same for the angry and sad control, or angry and worry controls. They're just two little actions just to sort of make things look that way. And for his mouth as well, it's just like an opening and closing action. So the sort of face side of things is quite basic there. For the gaze, I think I'm not sure I have to explain that too much in depth, but yeah, the gaze, you would just want to animate your pupils going up and down, your pupils going left to right, and then the gaze control in the middle is just bringing them closer and further apart. So finally, let's talk about this head control and how we set this up and get it working to do this sort of cool stuff. So basically, what we want to do, oh yeah, I should demonstrate. There's actually a lot of bones that aren't visible here. So if we go bone and hide and show shy bones, yeah, here we go. We can see that there's a bunch of other bones that have just shown up. And if I'm on frame 1, select this, we can see that we've got an up and down and a left and right with these little parent controls on them. And we can move this outside of the circle. The circle here is basically just a guide to be like, oh, don't go outside the circle because nothing's going to happen outside of there. So, excuse me, let us quickly set this up, and hopefully I'm not running out of time because it's probably like the crux of everything. We'll make sure we're on frame 0, and we'll use the grid for this as well. So we'll draw a point in the middle, then we'll draw a bone here and a bone there, and then make sure that they have no bone strength, that they are not parented to anything. Then we want to set up angle constraints for these bones. So we'll again go -45, +45. Great. And then we'll click on this guy and draw a point bone at the end. And we'll do the same thing for this. And then we want to select these two bones and hit P and just make sure they're not parented to anything either. Finally, we want to, just drawing a blank there. Oh yeah, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. We'll hit P again and control click this, just like we did on those leg bones earlier. And if you need a quick refresher, the other way to do that is we can see that this bone is called B51. So we'd select this bone, go to bone constraints, inverse kinematics, B51. So the exact same thing. And from there, what we basically want to do is this will be a vertical bone. So this bone will be moving up and down, and this will be a horizontal bone. So I might just have a quick drink. Okay, so we need to make sure that this is following the center bone. So we'll go to bone constraints, and further down, we can see that we've got control bones. So we can select the position here, and let's have a quick look. This center bone is called B47. So we would come in with this control bone and say position, I want it to follow B47. And then that unlocks these two boxes here. So one is horizontal and one is vertical. I'm pretty sure this one's the vertical. So we don't want it moving vertically. So we'll just set this one to 0. And now if we come in and select the transform bone tool, you cannot use the manipulate bone tool for this. And you also need to be on frame 1. We can see that, oh, yep, just turn off the grid. Yeah, now that control bone follows this bone horizontally and in turn moves this bone down the bottom. So that will be our left and right action. And then we just need to basically do the same for this. So we go into position. What was this one called? B47. So we'll go to B47. And then we do want this one to go vertically. So we just switch off the horizontal axis by making that 0. Double check everything's working on frame 1. It works. And from there, basically now what you want to do is you would select this, make a smart action, you know, and then have when it's pointing down and when it's pointing up. And in this action, as a very quick example, we'll just grab his head. It's not going to look very great, but we shift it down. Man, this is rough. And then go up as well. Do is looking upwards in the worst way possible. But yeah, so we have this up and down, and we'll quickly just to demonstrate this so that we can, well, yeah, I think you get the idea actually. So if we come back in and we manipulate this on frame 1, yeah, we can see that we've just shifted the drawing and moved it around for the up and down motion, and then the left and right motion. And yeah, it just sort of allows you to, I found like having these independent sliders like left and right and up and down, it just slowed the animation process down so much because you were constantly adjusting things and tweaking things. Whereas this, I could be like, well, I want them looking that way, I want them looking this way. It's still pretty rough and janky, but I think a lot of that just comes down to the illustration itself. Yeah, pretty great. And as I said before, I do have these smart actions set up for the pupils, but in a new rig that I've been experimenting with, I did the same sort of ring for the pupils and then a gaze control off to the side, and it made things a lot easier as well for having him look around. So I would recommend using this for eyes too. And then finally, we can see that we've got all of these colorful bones sticking off to the side, and we don't actually need all of them. But I did this just because it made things a little bit easier to move around. So yeah, we've got our smart actions and everything. I am going to, we'll say, draw one up here, and one down here. So we'll make sure that these are not parented to anything. Bone strength is 0, and yeah, these should also have 0 bone strength. I should point that out. So these are basically just kind of like control bones. Man, I really did a number on his face. So I can now say this bone, I want it parented to that. And then we will say that I want this, just like we did before with these face controls, I want this to follow the root bone, which is B1. I want this to follow the root bone B1, but only in the horizontal axis. So now when I move this around, we can see that as our character moves up and down, the control doesn't jump around all over the place, but if we're moving him from left to right across the screen, it will stay there. And obviously we don't need to see that bone all the time, so we'll select it and hit shy bone and it'll disappear. If you need to bring it back, just go bone, show or hide shy bones. But I just found doing it this way just helped neaten things up. The main reason I want it like that as well is because at any time I can just come in and be like, well, I'm going to move this control over here because it suits me better. And it just gives you a little bit more freedom over how the rig is sort of laid out. So yeah, we would select all of these, parent them to this guy, do the same thing, make it follow B1, horizontal axis, shy bone, and same for these, B, and horizontal axis. Now, the other cool thing about this is, I'll actually just show those shy bones again, is yeah, I had these boxes around it just to make things nice and easy. So we can just create a new vector layer, for example, and let's say we wanted to do the circle around this. I'll just do a pretty rough one. And this is honestly, whoops, just to give the animator yourself a little bit of a guide of like, don't go outside the circle because you don't need to. So we'll just select that. Maybe we don't want to fill, but we want a stroke. Great. So coming back, we can then, yeah, we'll have that selected and have this shy bone and go link bones. And now if I were to move this around, oh, I thought I had that working previously. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, either way, it's just a way of keeping everything nice and uniform. I'm pretty sure I had something like that working to that effect, but I guess I didn't. No, no, it was this one. Either way, yeah, you get the idea. So we can hide all of our shy bones, so we don't need those extra controls. I also actually hid these as well. I made them shy bones too, just because the animator only needs that one ring to animate with. And yeah, I mean, as far as the overall rigging process goes, I think that's pretty much it. I'm not sure there's too much else to cover other than I hope that I'm not pushing time here too much, but I did make a separate little rig for this fly down here. Just got a frame one for him. So he actually, it's just some controls don't work on frame 0. I think that's the right rig. Fly. Yeah, we've got some legs walking, which I've doubled up a few things. His wings are also doubled up. I think I've got 2 rigs on top of each other here. Slide one. Hmm. Uh, Okay, we'll try here. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, we've got his legs walking and his wings flapping, and you can cycle things like these just to sort of get that quick movement. And we've got a basic root bone, and then another thing that I did was got this guy, and if we move this, yeah, we can squash and stretch his neck. This is pretty crap, like, I mean, it looks pretty bad, but this is just like a cool little experiment for how the squash and stretch works, which is we can select a bone and under bone constraints, just have squash and stretch scaling, and you can sort of turn this value up and down. So that might be something that you want to consider throwing in on some of your rigs as well. The main reason that this one has it is because way later on in the animation, just might have to zoom out a fair bit here. When he catches this fly, see this, I needed some squash and stretch as he rips the fly's head off. And I guess one other interesting thing to note, because it is pertaining to rigging, is you cannot, from what I've gathered, you cannot parent a rig to another rig. So this fly rig right here is obviously sitting outside of the mantis rig. So we can see that there's this big red box in our timeline now. And basically what we're doing is as he comes in, the visibility of this fly toggles off as he grabs it. So he snaps back, comes forward, and we can see that I actually made a mistake here. The fly is already in his hand before he picks this up. And what's actually going on here is there is a duplicate of this fly's rig, and it is in the left arm. There we go. So the fly's rig is in there. So because that's in his arm rig, now it just follows his arm around and it looks like he is holding the fly. So two separate rigs. You can't parent a rig to another rig, but you can shove a rig inside of another rig, which is pretty great. And then, yeah, animating things like layer visibility for his head to pop off also makes things pretty great. Quickly looking at notes. Oh, I guess the final thing to talk about this rig, which is only visible in this, I'll just go back to frame 0, is I did add one thing to this Mantis rig, and that is two little controls down here for his shadow. Basically, we've got this shadow that moves left, sorry, that just sort of jitters it so that it does have line boil, but it just sort of stretches and skews it a little bit. And then we've got this one that makes it bigger and smaller. And I could probably have rigged this up so that I wouldn't have to do it manually, but it just means that while he's low to the ground, I can make it kind of bigger. And then if he's going to jump up off the ground, I can make it smaller and just have like less of an impact. So while he's running around, it just helps him look like he wasn't floating on a white background. And we can see that it just sort of moves around with him. So yeah. What time do we start? It's 2 o'clock. I think that's pretty much it. Um, uh, yeah, according to my notes, I've covered just about everything. So I don't know if you're still there, Mario, and you want to take questions or.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Rhys, for this amazing demo about your project. We really loved it. And yeah, as you say, time flies. And unfortunately, we'll have to shrink a bit our Q&A. But we want to say thank all of you who joined us live. We asked at the beginning from where were you watching us? For example, Jerry from Argentina, Gila, Indonesia, Brian, Ottawa, Canada. Who else? Cupertino, California, Lee. So Scotland, Jay. Thank all of you. Joe from Brazil. Thank all of you. And one of the questions was about now that you gained some experience using the software, what would you do if you were back again in time? What would you do differently that now you get it? Ah, okay, this is how I should have rigged the character better, or maybe some other setting that you find now more useful that when you are with your first approach.
Sure. I think well, like I said earlier, I had this head control set up for his head, but I think having the eyes set up this way makes a lot more sense as well. One other thing is this rig is very dependent on everything being linked to layers, and I think it works well because of the way it's drawn. However, later on, I tried to do the same thing with a stick figure that basically just had like a rectangle for a body and then two stick figure legs sticking out to the side, and quickly realized that linking things to layers that way doesn't really work because you need to start incorporating things like flexi binding, which honestly, I've only just started experimenting with. I think I used that a little bit in a previous rig. But yeah, flexi binding is definitely something that's very helpful. One other thing is, I guess, I'm not sure I'd change much, but it's just something to be aware of is originally I was planning on having this character animate on twos. I think I wound up leaving everything animating on ones, but the antenna and these dangly things on his arms, they're using bone dynamics. So they just react automatically as his head as his head moves about. Whoops, zoomed way too far out. His antennas just sort of move for me, which is really great. But if you're going to animate on twos, they will still animate on ones. So you'll get this very smooth motion happening against a choppy motion. Um, so I didn't set that up for the abdomen. I hope this is making sense. I animated the abdomen by hand and then just wound up switching everything to animate on ones anyway. I guess what I'm trying to say is like knowing the limitations of like what you can and can't get away with can be very useful. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, surely. And another question was that was also very popular is like, why did you choose to use Moho vector brushes? Why not importing the character like from Photoshop with separated uh, layers? What was the reason why you or the advantages that you found on the vector brushes?
Yep. So I actually did a couple of previous projects using using just importing, and that was solely because I didn't know how to use Moho's drawing tools, which seems silly because I use vector software all the time. It's just I wasn't used to, I guess, the way Moho drawing tools worked. Like you can have like Bezier handles coming out of 3 points. It's crazy. But either way, I have used imported things in the past, and while they are great and you can do so much with them, um, doing things like his body rotation, for example, having like I could use a warp layer and I could have the buttons on separate layers and whatnot, but I really wanted to try and get my head around some of Moho's drawing tools and see the advantages. And obviously being able to shift everything around um, with the magnet brush and whatnot really helps push the character a lot further. Something else, a really big advantage, which is the line boil. Like it doesn't look like there's a lot going on here, but especially when the character is standing still, you've got this great wriggling effect going on that gives it that almost hand-drawn quality. And if I would have just imported this from an external piece of software, you wouldn't have that line boil. It'd just look like a bunch of Photoshop layers sort of moving about, and which would still look really cool. Um, but I just found drawing this within the software actually gave me a lot more control than I've ever had with projects I've done previously. So,
Mhm. And unfortunately, one last question is about if you have ever tried to create your own brushes.
I haven't. No, I have thought about it. I actually had a friend years ago who came around and we used like a bunch of sponges and paper and leaves and photographed them all with the intention of turning them into brushes for affinity. But I just never got around to doing it. and I would love to do that for Moho as well. But yeah, it's just it's something I've had on the back burner for years, and hopefully one day I'll get around to it.
Hmm. And well, and someone asked specifically about this, and we invite him and all of you also to check our tutorials, and because there's a specific episode about advanced brushes, so you can learn how to do your own brushes.
Oh, that'd be good.
And if you have any final questions, a suggestion to anybody who's new to Moho or try or would like to try to create an animation from his own sketches before we leave,
Sorry, could you say that again?
if you can just say, share with us one last thought about the process or an invitation for anybody who would like to create an animation with his own sketches.
Oh, right. I guess go nuts. Like I have to admit when I first looked at the initial sketch of this, the only reason I used it was because I just couldn't be bothered drawing something new at the time. Um, and I wasn't really sure how it would animate. And I think the fact that this is such a messy drawing, I don't know, I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. But I'm really glad that I approached it this way. I think that you should try and take pieces of artwork or drawings that conventionally would not be animated. I think like one thing I've noticed about a lot of Moho's 2D animation is there are things that I see pop up from time to time that they're just styles that you don't often see animated in a lot of conventional cartoons. And I think that's partly because like Moho has this great flexible rigging process that pretty much allows you to do just about anything. So I would like, take your drawings or take your kids' drawings that they've done with textures and crayons and pens and whatnot, and see if you can make really cool, flexible rigs out of them by redrawing them inside of Moho. I think like experimentation is key, and you might just stumble upon something really cool by doing it that way.
Well, thank you so much, Rhys, for those wise words shared for everybody here in the audience and everybody who will watch it on YouTube later. We just want to say thank you once again. Steph Damon said something really nice. Thumbs up, great webinar, amazing work, Rhys. Keep it, keep at it. The fact is quite intuitive, and I have options in an animating software makes an experience a lot more efficient. Thank you all very much from Norway. So
Oh, thanks,
let's
guys. I really appreciate it. Cheers.
cheers to all of you. And before we go, we just want to share one last bit of information. With Moho, the future is 2D. Moho is a powerful 2D animation software that combines the most powerful animation technology with state-of-the-art professional animation tools. Draw, rig, and animate easily. You can create your characters directly in Moho with its vector tools optimized for animation, or import images or Photoshop files, keeping the link and layering structure. For more information, visit mohoanimation.com. Also, in our website, you will find our free course from beginner to expert, Learn Moho from beginner to expert. You can download it and watch it whenever you want. There's 80, 80 there are 80 tutorials, sorry, that you will quickly learn the basics and how to do all your animations and riggings with our software. So we invite you to visit, download it, or also watch it on YouTube. And also, we invite you to join us in our social media channels as Moho Animation on Twitter or X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Also, join our YouTube channel, subscribe to get notifications for future videos and also this webinar recording, and participate in our Moho community at Discord and our forum. People is really active. If you have any doubts, just share your doubts with the community. They will gladly help you. And for more information about Rhys and his project, don't forget to follow him on RSKT_art. Also, the same for Facebook, the RSKT, that the capable artist, and his website as well. So, Rhys, once again, thank you so much for this amazing presentation.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor. Yeah, cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys, all of you who join us live, and please stay tuned for more events and webinars about Moho. So we hope to see you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.